Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm Preston M. Smith, at PMS Artwork everywhere on internet land and socials. I want to thank you for landing on this podcast. Whether you're a professional artist, just getting started in the art world, a collector of art, or just consider yourself a creative person, this podcast has something for you. I like to think of it as a fun way to rant and talk to other creative people about living the life of an artist, surviving and getting ahead in the art world, and enjoying your life. But most importantly, not waiting until you're dead to make it happen. All right, let's get started.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Deciding which credit card or loan is right for you is like trying to choose where you want to eat for dinner. Except when you finally get to the restaurant, the menu's riddled with jargon that no average foodie could understand. So at Credit Karma, we keep things simple. We show you personalized recommendations that align with your money goals and help you turn the confusing fine print into terms you can actually understand. And as a cherry on top, we provide a detailed overview for a new card or loan before you apply. That way, we can help you make decisions faster and with more confidence. Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
I am the Keymaster. I am the Gatekeeper. Remember that scene from Ghostbusters? Well, this is nothing like that. But it's kind of symbolic. Roll it.
There is no data, only soul.
Ah, Jesus. I said that's it. No more movie references. They don't even pay me enough for this shit.
Take us from this part of your life into doing like art advisory and on to starting your company and everything.
Sure. So, when I was getting my master's in Chicago, I did my master's in arts administration and policy, but I was really interested in curatorial work. So I wanted to explore sort of what all the avenues might be for somebody like me in the art world. I ended up working at a commercial gallery in Chicago. And then I ended up working as the interim director at Gallery 400, which is the university gallery for the University of Illinois in Chicago, which was a great experience in curating and managing a team. And then I think most formatively probably is that I took on a position as a curatorial assistant at the Renaissance Society, which is at the University of Chicago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was when Suzanne Gaz was the director and Hamza Walker was there. Hamza, you might know from LA.
Yeah.
He's now the director at LAX Art, but it is an incredible institution with a really long history and a very specific kind of curatorial approach. And so I definitely consider Suzanne and Hamza to be mentors.
Yeah.
Especially in that side of my life as a curator. Their perspective on what the role is of the curator is what I have ascribed to as well, which is really about getting to know an artist very intimately in their practice, understanding what is driving them, what is it that they're trying to communicate through their work. And as the curator, being the one to help figure out how to frame their practice, how to present their practice in a way that allows more engagement by more people, and it's
That's
really
important.
Yeah, it kind of helps to frame their work in a way that makes it accessible to people or, helps deepen the understanding of their practice. And so that's really my approach to curating as well. And I've really kept that in my heart.
Was there a moment or like a show or a person that you spoke to that was like, I think I can do this. This is something I want to do. Or was it more just kind of organic, just a process?
I guess it was quite organic. I do remember a moment, for sure. I was working with Hamza very closely on a group show called Several Silences. And the group shows are not what the Renaissance Society was known for at the time. We did a group show maybe once a year, but otherwise it was solo exhibitions. And that's a very different, process as with a curator and an artist. I love the process for the group show because it was a ton of research. It was like there was an overarching theme. It was figuring out how these practices spoke to each other, etc. But I remember we had the opening for that. And after the opening, one of the artists who we were going to present it in a solo exhibition was there to see the group show, but also to, talk about what was coming up for his own exhibition at the Ren. And that was the artist Alan Sekula, who's passed now. But I remember we had this big conference room, and I remember Suzanne, Alan, Hamza, and I sitting at that table. Suzanne invited me in to sit. And Suzanne was talking about how, she was remembering what she saw the last time she visited Alan. They started talking about some of the ideas he was exploring, what that would mean to show this part of his practice versus another. What are the ideas? And it was just like this very kind of casual conversation about him, his practice, the space, how people would react. And I was like, is this the curatorial process? This is amazing. I love this because it felt like it was so genuine in this interest in knowing the artist in a real way, in a deep way.
Yeah, it's intimate.
And it was so intimate. And, that was one of many, many, many conversations they would have leading up to the exhibition. I think the exhibition was still over a year out at that point, but it was like this idea of a deep engagement with an artist, not rushing the process, but really just knowing how to have a relationship with them, to get to know them in that way, so that you could be a curator in respect to his work, with respect to the work. Yeah.
Well, and
I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's very challenging because each artist is very different as well.
Absolutely.
You got to find that little window in,
Absolutely. Yeah. But, so the process of the Renaissance Society, definitely very formative in my thinking as a curator. When I moved to San Francisco, I was looking originally for jobs at museums. I wanted to be a curator at a museum, but it was 2009 and the economy had crashed and none of the museums had a budget to hire. So it was a challenging time. And I was trying to figure out, where do I fit in? What would I like to do? And when I was doing my master's, I had also been interested in art advising, but I thought that was something that I probably wouldn't do for another several years, maybe, because I wasn't sure how I could fit in at that point in my career. But as luck would have it, through meeting people here in the Bay Area art world, was connected to Mary Slott, who is a legend when it comes to art advising. I knew who she was and her reputation. She's one of the most respected art advisors in the world. And she worked with really established collectors here in the Bay Area. And it felt like a dream job to take on and to learn from her. So she also, I would definitely count as a strong mentor in my career. She taught me everything I know now about art advising, how to approach it in a way that is about curating, curating a collection, about listening carefully to not the artist in this case, because you're separated from the artist in a way, but really listening to your client, understanding what their concerns are, what interests them, what drives them to be collecting. How do you tie together a collection that feels relevant? How do you encourage your clients to engage in the art world more broadly? How can they have the power to support an institution in a meaningful way? How does that build community? All of those things were really important in the way that she approached advising, and that has influenced the way that I also approach advising today. And I spent 10 years there with her.
Tell us about it. I'm interested. Are you kind of giving the whole site a makeover?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it kind of flows into what we'll talk about. Our site was founded in 2006. And at the time, we built everything from scratch. The internet and e-commerce has changed so much in that time frame. And so we're working now on reworking the design of our site as well as a lot of the technology, because if you can believe it, since 2006, we've been using the same foundation and architecture of the site. So over time,
really?
Yeah, we've built on it and it's been quite successful for us. But I think we've reached the point now where it's time to rework some of the parts of what we do. And really, software as a service has come about in the last couple of years in a way that's kind of amazing. Instead of us having to build everything as a custom application, we can now use a lot of what's out there. And there's some really great technologies that we weren't able to take advantage of. It's been fascinating too, talking to our web developers about things that we thought we were doing so special. And they explained to us, well, actually now this is a pretty standard feature. So yeah, it's really cool.
You were pioneers.
Yeah, in some ways, definitely pioneers in the online art space. And I think e-commerce has come a long way too. When we first started out, it wasn't that common for people to buy groceries online or cars or anything like that. And now we buy everything on the internet. And art is kind of one of those final frontiers. People have become really comfortable with that in the last few years.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I think everything is growing so exponentially. Like I just got a new phone and it's just absurd how much space you can have on your phone now. I have more space on my phone than I had in my computer just a few years back. And that's awesome. Yeah. Well, first of all, we're going to back up a little bit. We're here with Alex Farkas, the co-founder or founder of U Gallery Online, and you're also the gallery director. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So why don't you, well, you're based in San Francisco also, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, nice. If you want to take us through your origin story, how you got interested in art, how that kind of became U Gallery, you can take as long as you want and tell us as much or as little as you want.
Wonderful. Well, I grew up in a little arts town in northern Arizona. My mom was a potter and a gallery owner, and my uncle's a sculptor. So I really, like most people who are involved in the arts, I grew up around it. And then I went to the University of Arizona where I studied art history. And also I went into the entrepreneurship program there in the business school. And it was a really cool experience because while I was studying in the art school, I was talking to my business partners in the business program about all the talented young artists I knew who were having this difficult time making a leap from being student artists to professional artists. And the entrepreneurship program at the school is really cool. Over the course of a year, they help you come up with an idea, teach you how to pitch it, write a business plan, and then ultimately you get to go to some case competitions. And so we came up with this idea where we would create an online gallery for emerging artists where they could reach new clients, kind of get that foothold and launch their careers. And the school loved the idea, so they helped us along. And we were sent to a couple business plan competitions, the premier one in the US and an international one in Canada. And kind of amazingly, we won both competitions.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was cash prizes. And so we got to the end of our senior year of school and had a little bit of seed money. So one of my partners and I decided to put that money to work, plus pretty much every other cent in our bank account. And we launched U Gallery. So we started that in 2006. We rented a little house in Phoenix and went to work building the business.
Nice. Instead of doing it in San Francisco or Silicon Valley, you did it out of Arizona and out of an Arizona garage instead.
That's right. We started early in Arizona. And after the first year, my partner moved to New York, and that helped us establish that East Coast market a little bit more. And then shortly after, I moved up here to San Francisco, which helped us establish a little bit more of the business here. And we found Phoenix was such a great place to start because cost of living was inexpensive and the services we needed. And then as the company grew, it was nice to be in these bigger centers. We had access to more artists for one, and then also it was a great place to be in terms of making connections for marketing and technology and everything else.
Definitely. One of the beauties of doing all this is not only was it easier for you to start in Arizona, more cost effective, but now for artists, you can do it from anywhere. I mean, I've been selling my work online for almost a decade now, and you can be anywhere in the world. Do you accept international artists as well?
We do. We work with mostly artists in the US, but I'd say something like 15% of our artist roster is international and all over, everywhere from Europe to Asia and in between. So pretty cool. The internet connects people in such interesting ways. And now, especially with having good systems for our fulfillment and how we get art from point A to point B, it's really easy to send pieces around the world. We have clients in every state and 50 countries around the world.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
With Uber Reserve, good things come to those who plan ahead. Family vacay? Reserve your ride as soon as you book your flights. To all the planners, now you can reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. See Uber app for details.
Yeah, first of all, we should probably back up and say we're with Morgan Fox. She's a curatorial assistant with Art and Embassies, which is an office of the U.S. Department of State, correct?
That is correct. Yes, it's a visual arts office within the U.S. Department of State. We've been around since 1963. And do you want me to tell you about how we came about? I
was going to test your knowledge. I've been combing the site. I know it started. It's kind of had its 50-year anniversary recently, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's actually about to have our 60th anniversary is about to start next year. So we'll have a lot of events and initiatives kind of surrounding that.
Because there's kind of two starting points, right? There's when the MoMA first envisioned this, and then I'll let you tell it, but I'm just going to act like I know what I'm talking about. And then in 1963, I believe it was JFK helped formalize it. Am I way off base here or?
Yeah. So how it got started, as I mentioned earlier, it's a visual arts office within the Department of State that's been around since 1963. And the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, they first formed it as this global visual arts program in 1953, initiating exhibitions of contemporary art in ambassadors' residences. This happened only some years after World War II. It was not a long time ago when the modern art movement moved from Paris to New York City. So in a sense, you have this burgeoning rise of abstract expressionism that proved in a way to be the genesis of Art and Embassies.
It was a huge boom, and that was established by FDR, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
I know that's when all of the people like Pollock and those guys had their start, and the women too, the women's movement as well. That's when there was this huge boom in the United States and in New York. A lot of people were first learning how to actually make money and get some exposure as an artist, which was great. And I'll let you continue. Sorry, go ahead.
Of course. So the program was later formalized, as you probably mentioned earlier. It was under John F. Kennedy's presidency as an office within the Department of State, and it was later called Art and Embassies. Yeah. So we have professional curators and registrars that curate and ship about 60 exhibitions per year for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we do it for chief of mission residences, which are basically residences where the ambassadors will stay. And we also do it for consulates, chanceries, and annexes. We have about 7 curators on our staff and 2 curatorial assistants, one of which includes me. Mm-hmm. Each curator is assigned to a post, but we usually work on more than one post. We work on several out of the 200 or so U.S. embassy venues that are in 189 countries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you're going to get to all of them pretty soon here.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'll try not to list all of them, but there are quite a lot of projects that we work on. And the chief of mission residence exhibitions are what I mostly work with. And the ones of which that you happen to be in for the exhibition in Yaoundé, Cameroon.
Yeah. I was kind of interested. Sorry, how did you find me?
How did I find you? Gosh, that is a very good question, honestly. Typically, how we choose artists is kind of twofold. We have a registry where artists from any part of the world can submit their artwork for consideration. And the artists who first sign up to be included in the registry are not yet participating Art and Embassy's Artists in Exhibition, but their work is out there for consideration. And the curators and I look through and narrow down our search based on mediums, genre, and artist location. And that's usually based on the ambassador's input. It could be, for example, if the ambassador is from Michigan originally and they want to have traditional landscapes in the residence, then we can try and find Michigan artists or Michigan landscapes that are traditional in style through the registry. And people who submit their artwork through there, they would be contacted directly for a possible inclusion into the show. Should there be any interest, like I mentioned, we'll contact them directly and see if they'd like to participate. But a lot of the times, the second way I find artists like yourself is through Google. It's nice. My best friend. That's where I like where my research skills like to come in handy. The trick is mostly in the keywords and the meticulous searches through databases like Artsy and Saatchi. I would also read through news articles and find artist names, then look and see if they're active or if they have their own website or if they're represented in a gallery. And how I found your art is exactly how I found you for the exhibition in Yaoundé. And I'll get to that for sure. For his chief of mission residence, Ambassador Lamora, he wanted vibrant, colorful artworks that are inspired by the styles of this American artist, Keith Haring, and the Dutch painter by Piet Mondrian. So sometimes I'd look through Saatchi for some ideas. And when I typed in literally the keyword Piet Mondrian, I narrowed it down to American artists and your name came up in the search. And I was I was instantly attracted to your work. I then looked you up. I found you on our website, shared it with the ambassador, and he really liked it and contacted you from there.
That's amazing. I had no idea all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes, but I'm definitely a big Mondrian fan. So that's really cool. I was actually just in the MoMA. My wife and I went to New York and I got to go to the MoMA for a bit and saw some Mondrian in person, Picasso's, everybody that I wanted to see, de Kooning's. It was just amazing. So it's really cool to be connected that way. This Art and Embassy carries a lot of clout. You've worked with some amazing artists and I'm personally honored to be a part of it. And it was just kind of funny because when you reached out, I was like, is this for real? You know what I mean? Because
is this spam email?
yeah. Is this spam? But once my wife and I kind of Googled it, we're like, oh, wow, this is legit. And then I realized I'd done an interview with Man One. I don't know if you are familiar with that name, but he's a kind of a graffiti artist in LA, pretty well known. And he does a lot of work. He's owned his own gallery. He's been doing a lot of solo shows. He has a long history, but he was telling me how he did, I think he was in Puerto Rico, if I'm not mistaken, but he went down there. I think he did one of those maybe you could tell us about that. It's an exchange or something.
Oh, yes, that's right. So it was probably like an artist exchange is what he did.
Yeah, he was down there for a few days and he got to meet with a bunch of people and give classes with some of the kids in the community.
That's great. And that's exactly what we do. That's kind of basically the educational component of Art and Embassies is when we host artist exchanges in the location where the artist's work was installed. And that initiative is usually driven by the embassy itself, depending on what kind of programming they want to do or if they want to do it. So when COVID happened, the exchanges have been virtual, but now that travel is opening up, they're becoming more in person, depending on the posts. And it is really this wonderful, enriching opportunity for artists to collaborate with local artists and participate directly with the embassy. And this variety of public programming could include, like you mentioned, workshops or master classes with student artists, studio visits, lectures, an opening reception at the embassy with the ambassador and their guests. Or, cool. I mentioned, they collab with local artists who produce works for permanent collections in new embassies or consulates. And since the exchanges started in 2002, there have been over 200 exchanges to date.
This has been the Living Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, and I'm grateful to be in your ears. Your art and creative life on this planet is meaningful, so thank you for sharing it with me. If you like this podcast, whatever platform you're listening to it on, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also leave me a positive review to show your support. This helps me to reach more people with the algorithmic magic and keep the show going strong. If you want to see more of what I do and check out the art that I create, you can visit my website at www.pmsartwork.com or follow me on social media everywhere at PMS Artwork. That's it for now. See you back here next time.